So today we're going to talk about mixing greens, and I'm going to start off with tube greens that I would never use by themselves because they're not very natural looking. You wouldn't see these greens in nature, but by mixing them with yellows and a little bit of red, different reds and yellows, you can come up with some very nice, interesting greens for your landscape. Natural greens in the landscape are mostly warm, which means one needs to mix yellows and a teeny bit of red to come up with the nice warm greens that you see in the landscape. When adding red, you've got to be very careful because, as you know, red is the complement of green on the color wheel, which means that if you put too much red into the green, you're going to get grayish colors and dull colors, and we don't want that. But we do have to put a little bit in sometimes. Now, what I have here is Winsor or Phthalo green yellow shade, Winsor or Phthalo green blue shade, sap green, and hooker's green. And the reason that I have this square here is because I started to mix this and then discovered that my video wasn't working. So what I mixed here was the phthalo green yellow shade with some aureolin yellow and some Venetian red. So I'll continue that. Sorry about that one. You're not going to see me mix it, but you'll see me mix the others. So I'm going to take the same color, which is, I'm first going to take some aureolin. Now this aureolin yellow is a lovely transparent yellow, and it's a cool yellow, but it mixes very nicely to make nice greens. And I'm going to take a little bit of alizarin crimson in that. I've probably put too much now, and it's probably, I'm going to have to add a lot of green to get the nice color back. Let's do some more yellow. Maybe I'll add a bit of Venetian red to that. I think that may spice it up a bit. You really have to experiment with this and just keep trying until you get a color that pleases you. I'm going to add some more yellow. See, it's gone a little bit opaque probably because of the Venetian red that's in it. But let me put that down. It's quite a nice green. If you add a little bit of water, you get a slightly lighter green. That's quite pleasant. Now we could try mixing. I have to keep changing my water. Let's try mixing the some alizarin crimson with this green and see. I put a little bit too much alizarin in there. If you want to get a really, really dark green for something, you can use alizarin. And look, you see you get a really nice dark green. Because the alizarin is a cool color, it's made the green a much cooler green. Now, let's go on to the phthalo green blue shade. And let's see what that, I think I'm going to mix that. I've got a feeling it's going to look good with the Venetian red. So let's try that. Maybe it does need a little bit of yellow in it, but I want to just try it without the yellow first. Let's see what that does. Well, it's an interesting color. It's a cool color. You could use, because we've just got red and green there. But if we add some, let's say we add some new Gamboge to that, so you get a lovely grassy green, which could be interesting to use for grasses. And let's try that with some aureolin and alizarin and see what happens. You just really, the red's got to be just a touch. You really don't know if you can see, the light's not very good here. It's not bad. It's quite a nice green. Okay, now sap green. That's one of my favorite greens. And when I was studying watercolors with Jerry Stitt, who's an incredible watercolorist, the only green he ever used was sap green and burnt sienna, which makes a really nice, you can get a dark green like that, like a dark olivey green. If you add, let's add some new Gamboge to that maybe, and a little bit more water. Get an even lighter grassy type green. You could get just about any green. With this color, you could get just about any green that you want. And let's try it with, I've never tried sap green with, it's Venetian red. Let's try that. And it'd have to be a little bit of yellow, so we'll do aureolin. A bit more Venetian. It's kind of an olivey color. See? It's interesting. You could go on forever with this and create some really interesting greens, and I would suggest that you do that, because everybody has their own favorite colors that they like to use in their painting. So you should make a lot of these charts and write what your mixes underneath them, so that when you come to do a landscape, you can just look at the colors and you'll know which ones you want to use. So I'm going to use this Hooker's green with some alizarin crimson, which will make a very dark green. Look at that, isn't that nice? That's a lovely dark green. Let's try Hooker's green with some Indian yellow and a little bit of burnt sienna maybe. Another nice green. It's not one of my favorites, but it's okay. Let's try Hooker's green with Venetian red. Let's try the Venetian red and see what that does. Oh, I put too much in. Let's go back in here. Clean my brush. It's a little dull, so I'm going to add some aureolin to that. I'm going to add some aureolin. Let's see what that does. So there, out of these 4 colors, you've made 12 greens, and you could go on, with different yellows, different reds. Just, experiment and have a lot of fun, and you won't like all the mixes that you do. You can decide which ones you do like, maybe make another chart with your favorites, keep that for your landscapes, and have a lot of fun. Just experiment and experiment. Now, there are a few tube greens that I do use, and I just want to show you those because they can be very useful in your landscape. And 2 of them are a very cool green. I've got Prussian green, which is a really nice green that I use quite a lot in my landscapes, and perylene green, which I always thought were pretty similar until I put them next to each other, and it's totally different. In fact, the perylene green, the Prussian green obviously has some blue in it, you can see that, and this one is more of just a dark cool green. And then there's olive green, which I use occasionally, but it is a color that you can use straight out of the tube, that you don't need to mix with anything. But you can get that color with sap green and a little bit of burnt sienna, so you don't need to buy olive green. There is a color that's really beautiful, and it's called green gold, and it's a really, really lovely color. And those are the 4 greens that come straight out of the tube, and I wouldn't mix with anything because you'd probably muddy them up. But that's Prussian green, perylene green, olive green, and green gold. And those are all Daniel Smith colors, and I love Daniel Smith colors. They're really beautiful, and these are really lovely greens. I have put down the French ultramarine, the aureolin yellow, Indian yellow, and raw sienna, and we're going to mix greens with those yellows and that blue. So let's do first the French ultramarine with aureolin and see what kind of green we can get with that. It'll be a cooler green than the other colors because aureolin is a cool color. So let's take some Indian yellow. I've got to find a place to mix this and some of the French ultramarine, and you're going to get a much warmer green because the Indian yellow is a warm color. Then I'm going to mix some raw sienna, which is a color that granulates, and this will produce a very earthy green color. Not usually a color that you mix with most colors, but I do often mix it with French ultramarine just to get an earthy green, which is similar actually to the one above it, interestingly enough. Another blue that I'm going to use is Indigo, which is one of my favorite blues. And let's try that with some Indian yellow first and see what we get in terms of the green. Take a bit more. The Indian yellow with indigo. Let me just put some indigo up here. It's a lovely dark blue. I really love indigo, and I use it in my dark skies. You can see how beautiful that is. Okay, so let's mix that with some raw sienna. I actually sometimes mix it with raw sienna, believe it or not, and you get quite a nice green, earthy green again. And I am going to try mixing it with aureolin to see what kind of you should get a fairly brightish green now. In fact, let's try a little bit, put a little bit of red in there, Venetian red, see what kind of a green we get. See, there's all those greens you can do by mixing blue and yellow also. I hope you've enjoyed this session on greens, and if you have, please give me a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel. And next week we'll be covering reds and oranges.